You think you need more time, more clarity, more motivation. But what if I told you the only thing standing between you and the life you want is you, not your job, not your past, not the people around you, you. There's a voice inside you, and it sounds smart. It sounds careful. It sounds like it wants what's best. But it's not helping you grow. It's killing your momentum. This voice has a name. It's called self-sabotage. And until you face it, call it out, and break its grip, your future stays locked. But not today. Today we end the cycle. Not with talk, with truth, with movement, with the version of you that finally says, I'm done waiting. You want change. You crave it. But every time you're ready to begin, something whispers inside, not yet. It's too hard right now. Later will be easier. And you believe it, because that voice is smooth. It sounds smart. It sounds like it cares. You're not ready yet. You need to learn more. You're tired. Handle other stuff first. Sounds reasonable, right? But here's the truth. That voice isn't your friend. It's the voice that's been stealing your life. That voice has a name. It's called self-sabotage. And it doesn't come dressed as weakness. It wears a disguise, logic, common sense, concern. But its mission is clear. Keep you stuck. Keep you safe. Keep you comfortable. Because if you don't act, you don't fail. If you don't leap, you don't fall. But you also don't grow. You don't win. You don't live. Self-sabotage isn't rejection, it's betrayal. It's when your mind knows exactly what needs to be done. But every time you find a smart reason to wait. You swap the step that leads to your dream for the quick dopamine hit. Overthinking, rearranging, more research. These are masks. And until you see the masks for what they are, nothing changes. But here's the good news. This isn't a life sentence. It's just a system. And any system that was built can be broken. But first you have to stop lying to yourself. It's not the world. It's not time. It's not them. It's you giving excuses the wheel. You handing power to the inner voice that wants comfort more than it wants growth. And the second you admit that, not with shame but with honesty, that's the moment the wheels start turning. Because self-sabotage feeds on silence. And it dies the moment you say, I see you, and I don't follow you anymore. Self-sabotage doesn't always look like giving up. Sometimes it looks like productivity. Cleaning, organizing, downloading new tools, reading just one more article. But when it's time to take the real step, looks like work. Feels responsible, but it's not. It's avoidance. It's fear dressed in progress. Self-sabotage doesn't yell. It whispers. It sounds like you. It slips into your morning when you say, today I start. And suddenly, you've got more important things to do. It tucks you in at night. I'm tired. Tomorrow will be better. But tomorrow's just another rerun of yesterday. For years, the biggest lie self-sabotage ever told. Just a little more time. It's endless. It's a trap. And the longer you repeat it, the more your brain learns. Avoidance is safety. And then, every time you try to move, your body flinches. Because action now feels like danger, even if your whole life is stuck in neutral. And that's where your breakthrough begins. You've got to break the link. Action no longer equals fear. How? By acting right when you want to avoid it most. Not a big win, just a swing at the system, a pattern interrupt, saying no where you always said yes. A small move in a bold new direction, right when everything in you wants to turn back. Because self-sabotage can't survive in direct light. Once you stop calling it me and start calling it a program, you take back your choice. And choice is the beginning of power. Every move after that, even the tiniest, isn't just motion. It's the moment you take your life back. Self-sabotage rarely looks like failure. It shows up as a deal. Rest today, you'll crush it tomorrow. And tomorrow says the same thing. And slowly, you start becoming someone else. Not the one who acts, but the one who plans, who worries, who prepares endlessly. You forget what it feels like to just begin. That's the real danger. When sabotage becomes your identity, that's just how I am. I can't focus. I always procrastinate. Sounds like honesty, right? But it's actually self-programming. Every time you say it, you reinforce the version of you that you're trying to outgrow. Your mission: separate yourself from the pattern. You are not your habit. You are not your fear. You are not your delay. That's just an old algorithm. But you are the operator. And you can rewrite your code, not in a giant leap, but in a shift. Resistance becomes action. Doubt becomes test. Anxiety becomes a micro move. And one of the most powerful ways to break sabotage: act with the fear. Not once it's gone, but while it's still there. Yes, your hands might shake, your heart might race, your head might spin. But every time you move in that moment of doubt, you build a new version of you, one that's still fragile, but real and alive. Remember this, you don't wait to feel powerful. Action is power, even just one move, especially when it's uncomfortable. That's where the system breaks. That's where you start climbing. There's another mask sabotage wears. Control, total obsessive, perfect control. You don't begin because you need to know everything, every risk, every outcome, every scenario. So you prepare, and weigh, and think. But the clock keeps ticking, and nothing happens, because you're waiting for ideal conditions. And let me tell you, they don't exist. Perfect is the most seductive excuse for staying stuck. You tell yourself you're being strategic, but the truth, strategy without movement is a flooded compass. It doesn't point anywhere, it just spins, and you spin with it. That's why you need to break the illusion. You'll never know everything, you'll never be 100% ready, but you can begin with what you've got, from where you are, as you are. Power doesn't come from prediction, it comes from motion. Even the wrong step teaches more than 100 hours of planning. Self-sabotage feeds on perfectionism, but growth is messy. It's about flexibility, about starting unsure, about walking through fog. And the more you move, the more it clears. Clarity doesn't come to the one who waits, it comes to the one who walks. So if you're thinking just a little longer, I'll be ready, recognize that voice. It's sabotage again. Break it with these words. I'll start even if I don't know everything. And in that moment you become the one who acts, not the one who waits for permission. Self-sabotage doesn't just delay your actions, it shapes your reality. And the longer you let it steer, the more your life becomes a loop. Same room, same thoughts, same plans that never touch the ground. And the reason, it's not out there, it's in you. Because every single day, you make the same choice, not to give yourself a chance. And yeah, it hurts to admit, but pain is where power begins. Pain wakes you up, it's the bell. And if you don't numb it, don't run from it. It becomes your fuel, because the most potent energy in the world, it's not inspiration, it's the decision to stop betraying yourself. Listen, you're not sentenced to live in a system where your excuses outweigh your will. You can choose differently, today, right now, not by convincing yourself, but by moving through the doubt. One gesture, one step, one move that disrupts the script. Self-sabotage isn't a demon, it's a habit, and every habit can be rewritten, but not with thoughts. Not with journaling, not with promises, with action. Because action sends a new signal into your system. I'm not the one who delays, I'm the one who does. And the more you repeat that signal, the faster the old you fades. Not instantly, but inevitably. And here's the first truth, the first root, the first crack in the wall. You already have the power to break everything that's holding you back. But first, stop looking for reasons and start looking for moments. Because one single moment of action is stronger than 10 days of internal debate. Self-sabotage isn't laziness. It's a survival tactic, wired into your brain to avoid pain. Because every move toward change carries a risk. The risk of being judged, the risk of failure, the risk of loss. And after years of avoiding pain, your mind has one reflex: resist. Not loudly, but cleverly, with thoughts like, let's prepare a little more. Now's not the time, I'm not in the right headspace. You thought it was caution, but it's a break, a stall, a strategy to keep you inside the familiar. Your body and mind crave predictability, and any step beyond it feels like danger, even if that familiar is a cage, even if that stability is just silence before a breakdown. Self-sabotage is your inner guard, blocking the breakthrough, not because it's evil, but because it doesn't know better. It was programmed to protect, but protection isn't life. It's preservation, and a preserved soul doesn't burn. So the first step, don't treat it as the enemy. See it as old code. You don't fight it, you rewrite it. Not with affirmations, with new habits, because habit beats belief. You can believe you're capable and still not act. But if you act daily, even without belief, the results come, and when results come, belief follows. Real reboot doesn't start with a motivational high. It starts in quiet. That morning moment where you could scroll again, but instead you write your plan. Where you could lay back, but instead you rise. Where you could delay, but you act. These moments aren't loud, but they're the new code of who you're becoming. And the more you break that barrier, the weaker it gets. Your "I can't" isn't truth. It's just a repeated pattern. And the more new action you plug into your day, the less control the old you has. One of the sneakiest forms of self-sabotage is the thought, "I'm not worthy yet," that you have to become better, prove yourself, fix yourself, before you're allowed to act. It sounds like humility, like self-awareness, but it's fear. Fear of success, fear of change, fear of what happens if you actually get what you want, because then you'll have to live differently, face new challenges, rise to a higher level, and you're still not sure you're ready. That unworthiness, it's a lie, because no action starts with full readiness. The successful, they weren't the ones who waited to be perfect. They were the ones who started with what they had, in their body, in their state, in their messy life. They didn't argue with fear. They didn't ask doubt for permission. They moved. And that is the formula. If you wait for shame, insecurity, and asn't to disappear, you'll wait forever. Because those feelings don't vanish before action. They fade during it, after the first move, after you realize the world didn't collapse, nobody laughed, you didn't fall apart. On the contrary, you stood, stronger. Every act, despite "I'm not ready," shatters sabotage. It breaks the script, because that script always says, "You're not there yet." But when you say, "I'll do it even if I'm not," you rewrite the code, and now it reads, "I act, therefore I'm already enough." Readiness isn't a requirement, it's a result. And once you accept that, you stop waiting for change and start creating it. Not because you're confident, but because you're alive, in motion, in choice, in that one powerful act. I'm here, and I began. Self-sabotage is especially dangerous when it hides in logic. When you justify inaction with reasons that sound smart. "I need more info. I should finish this first. I just need time to think." All of it sounds right, but in the end, you're still stuck. A day, a week, a month, and every pause has a price. Lost moments, lost energy, lost momentum. You don't lack intelligence. You have too much thinking and not enough doing. And that's the trap of our age. Thinking is praised more than action. Analysis is seen as depth, but often it's just avoidance. Because action, that's a collision with reality. Thought, that's just internal noise. If you want to know if you're really in motion, don't listen to your mind. Look at your calendar. Look at your browser history. Look at what you've finished. That's where truth lives, not in thoughts, in action. Sabotage knows you're smart. That's why it uses that against you. It doesn't shout. It doesn't block with brute force. It persuades softly. So you need a new standard. Action comes first, explanations after. Only then do you build a new system, where the mind doesn't control the movement, it supports it. Remember, the smartest people are often the most blocked. Not because they can't, but because they convince themselves it's not time yet. But the truth is simple. Time starts when you move. And every time you go from thought to concrete step, even a tiny one, you reclaim control. And you silence one more piece of sabotage. Another quiet form of sabotage is external dependence. When you don't start because you're waiting for someone, for validation, for support, for the perfect partner, for the right moment, and you say, "I just need someone to go with me." But the truth is, you're not stuck because you're alone. You're stuck because you're scared to be responsible for your own path. It sounds harsh, but it's real. As long as someone else is to blame, you're not accountable. You can complain, wait, analyze, but you don't have to act. And that's the comfort, because once you own the start, you can't hide anymore. Independence isn't heroism, it's reality. It's when you say, "There's no one else, so I'll go alone." And that's not a problem. That's my road. And something changes right there. Because that's when you stop being a passenger and become a creator. And in that motion, you begin to attract others in motion. Not because you waited, but because you became one of them. Every leader, every builder, everyone who ever changed anything started alone. No fans, no guarantees, no applause, just the whisper, "I'll begin," and that was enough. Because movement is a magnet. It draws the new, but only when it's made, not to be seen, but because not moving is no longer an option. If you're waiting for a sign, this is it. If you're waiting for someone, you're waiting for you. Because no one's coming, no one's rescuing, and that's not a tragedy. That's a chance to become strong, conscious, responsible, and therefore free. The most dangerous consequence of self-sabotage is when you stop trusting yourself. When you say, I'll start tomorrow, and you don't. When you make a plan and break it. When you promise and bail. Each time might seem small, but every one of them leaves a crack in your integrity, in your core. Because every broken promise says, I can't trust me. That destroys more than failure ever could. Because failure, that's experience. But the loss of self-respect, that's collapse. And that's why even a tiny action matters. It doesn't just move you forward. It cements who you are. It says, I showed up. I kept my word. I earned back my trust. No one else can pull you out of this. No one else can fix the gap between what you mean and what you do. Only you can be the bridge. And that means starting again. Not waiting to feel healed. Not waiting for the mood. Just getting up and doing something you promised today. Now. Quietly. Without drama. Just as fact. Because when you act, while others are still debating, you gain an edge. Not just outside. Inside. You're no longer the weak one. You're the one who keeps direction. Who rebuilds with daily action. And that action, it's not about being a hero. It's about honesty with yourself. This is your shot to end the sabotage loop. Not by forcing yourself, but by respecting yourself. Because action is respect. And if you do just one thing today, you're no longer the one who betrays. You're the one who's coming back. There's a reason why you freeze right at the edge of action. Right when everything's lined up, the thoughts are clear, the mind says go, and the body goes silent. It's not laziness. It's not exhaustion. It's emotional memory. Buried deep inside you is a past where action ended in pain, shame, judgment, defeat, and your nervous system remembers. It's afraid it'll happen again. So it blocks you with doubt, with fatigue, with distraction. But this reaction, it's automatic. It's not your conscious choice. It's a conditioned response, like a child burned once, who now avoids not just the stove but the entire kitchen. The danger isn't real anymore, but your body still lives in then. And every breakthrough triggers an old defense code. Your job is not to break yourself. It's to retrain yourself. Not by force, not by war, but by slow, steady rewiring. You do it by facing action, small, safe, but real. And each time you move through the resistance, your body learns. This doesn't hurt anymore. This is safe. I can do this. It's like regaining feeling. Step by step, one move, then two, then a day where you didn't run from what mattered most. And that's how you break the fear that didn't live in your head, but in your breath, your muscles, your rhythm. Because action heals. It creates new memory, a new truth. I moved and it made me stronger. And here's the key. Fear doesn't have to vanish. It just has to lose its power. And that happens only when you stop treating it like truth and start treating it like noise. Step, step, step. And in that rhythm, you find freedom. A lot of people believe inner breakthroughs look like a lightning strike, like a sudden aha moment. But the truth, they look like routine, like repeating, choosing again. It's the discipline of small wins. And the biggest win, doing what you promised yourself in the exact moment when you want to delay. That's power. Not loud, not flashy, quiet, deep, real. Every morning, sabotage is waiting by your bed, ready to convince you the day can start later, that the first move isn't urgent, that there's still time. But those first few minutes after waking, that's your arena, your choice. Live by intention or by inertia. That's when the day starts, not outside, inside. You don't need massive action. You need motion. You need repetition. Not once, not twice, but every single day. And that consistency builds the most important thing, self-respect. Because when you know, I said it, I did it, you lay a new foundation for everything. Business, relationships, decisions. People ask, how do I stay on track? How do I not quit? The answer is in your ritual, your morning. One small act. No drama, no scrolling, no negotiation with the inner saboteur. You just show up, and each day that gesture gains weight. It becomes your weapon. You don't have to conquer the world every day, but you do have to defeat that voice, the one that says, do it later, because that victory, small, invisible, over time makes you unshakable. Not because it's easy, but because you chose freedom over comfort. Self-sabotage lives in the dark, in the unspoken, in the thoughts that flash for a second, then vanish out of shame. I failed again. I'm falling behind. I'm weak. You don't say these things out loud, but they echo inside, constantly. And that's what feeds the cycle. Because as long as there's shame inside and a performance outside, nothing real changes. And here's the paradox. You can't beat sabotage while you're ashamed of it, because shame creates shadow, and whatever lives in the shadow gets stronger. But when you bring it into the light, when you say, yeah, I delay, yeah, I'm scared, that's no longer weakness. That's power. That's ownership. And that starts to change. Truth doesn't destroy you. It destroys illusion, and it gives you a new position. Not victim, not spectator, but player. You don't have to win right away, but you've got to be in the game. And that means seeing yourself, all of you, not just the good parts, even the ones that hurt, and using them as material for building. Sabotage can't survive direct dialogue. It only thrives when you play silent. So talk, write, admit it. Simple words. I bail at the last minute. I promise. And don't follow through. And then magic. Because the moment you get honest, the armor falls. And without armor, there's no one left to sabotage. Just you. And choice. This might be the strongest move you make today. Not loud, not heroic, just radically honest. Because truth gives you back your power. And from that moment on, action no longer hides. Because you no longer hide from your sabotage often wears the mask of realism. You say things like, let's lower the bar. That's too ambitious. Better play it safe. But that's not realism. That's tiredness. Tired from failure, from other people's expectations, from your own self-doubt. And that tiredness makes you shrink, so you don't feel the pain. But shrinking doesn't heal. It kills. Slowly, quietly. Every time you dull your dreams to match reality, you build a cage, and you live in it. Comfortable, but shallow. No big losses, but no big wins. No risk, but no rise. And eventually, even inside that cage, you can't breathe, because you've forgotten what you want. You just exist. And that's sabotage at its worst. Not dramatic, but hollow. How do you break it? Open your eyes. Look at what still burns inside you. That thing you're afraid to think about because it feels too big. That is your freedom. And the moment you move toward it, sabotage screams. It floods you with fear. Not because it's dangerous, but because it's new. And new always threatens the old system. But you're not the old system. You're the builder of the new one. And every time you choose the real over the safe, you break the mold. When you grow to meet the goal, instead of shrinking the goal to match your fear, when you stop justifying and start solving, in those moments, you breathe again, deep, alive. And here's the real fear. It's not the goal itself. It's the version of you that the goal requires. But if you don't flinch, you'll become that version. Not instantly, but inevitably. There's a moment that breaks sabotage for good. And it's not when everything works. It's not when you feel amazing. It's when you act, even while you're still at war inside. When you don't wait for it to get easy. When you don't ask for the pain to stop. You just move. And that move might be small, but it's everything. Because it doesn't come from your head. It comes from the deepest part of you. The one that says enough. It could be a step, writing the post, launching the thing, quitting, starting. It could be a no to the habit, a yes to the chance. Whatever it is, it won't change everything at once, but it will change the direction. And a change in direction, that's already a different life, a different you. Because where there was pause, now there's momentum. Sabotage can't live in motion. It only survives in hesitation, in loops, in second guessing. But the second you cross the line, even just a foot, it loses power. It may yell, it may whisper, it may beg, but you don't listen, because you're in motion. And motion is always a choice, not a mood, not a feeling, a position. I do. And here's the deepest truth. Your identity is not shaped by thoughts, it's shaped by actions. Who you are is revealed by what you do, when no one's watching, when it'd be easy to quit, when everything says, just delay, but you don't, you act. There, your power is born. This is the anti-sabotage. It's not a trick, it's a way of living, a way where you're no longer the victim of your fear's voice. You're the author of your day, the author of your choices, the author of... Self-sabotage doesn't disappear after one win. It comes back, always. The moment you start a new project, when you level up, when it suddenly matters. And here's the key. It's not about defeating it once and for all. It's about learning to move forward with it, without obeying it. You stop waiting for the silence and act, even when it whispers. It's like walking with a weight on your back, but you don't stop. Because the best systems aren't the ones that only work when everything's perfect. They're the ones that work anyway, when you're tired, when you're scared, when your inner voice says, "You're not enough." Strength doesn't come from the absence of fear. It comes from motion through it. Strength isn't full confidence, it's stepping forward while still unsure. Strength isn't superhuman, it's human, real. It's choosing movement, even if the step is shaky. This is your daily training. Not to wait for the mood to be right, but to create the right action. That's discipline, not harsh, not military, but honorable. The kind that keeps you going when the lights are off. And that habit, not emotion, not motivation, breaks the cycle of sabotage. Because you're no longer fighting, you're living. And that life, it's not perfect, but it's real. And real is the only thing that matters. The self-sabotage can't survive momentum. When you move in spurts, it creeps in during the pause. But when you build a rhythm, steady, unexciting, relentless, it loses its grip. Because it doesn't get a window to crawl in. And that's your job, not to sprint, but to strike daily. Small, sharp, consistent. No drama, no burnout. Just this, I'm in the game. Every day. That rhythm is your power. Not because it brings overnight success, but because it gives no oxygen to old thinking. What is old thinking? Doubt turned into habit. Fatigue turned into excuse. Waiting, dressed up as patience. But rhythm doesn't wait. It doesn't ask questions, it just moves. And in that movement, it breaks you free. The power of rhythm is this. You're no longer ruled by mood. You're ruled by structure. And that is independence. You're not a slave to emotion, not a victim of fluctuation. You ride the wave, you don't get thrown by it. Rhythm means there's no should I in the morning. There's only doing. At night you don't feel guilty because you showed up. You followed through. No heroics, just consistency. And that's what builds strength. Quiet, cumulative, unshakable. And here's the truth. Rhythm is the most underrated revolution. It looks boring, but it breaks walls that stood for years. Not with noise, not with battle cries, but with quiet, persistent repetition. Like a new habit of showing up without pause. You want change, but change isn't an emotion. Change is repetition. It's doing what used to feel uncomfortable over and over. It's not something that feels different. It's something that is done differently. And here's the core. Sabotage lives in the moment of choice. When between now and later, you pick comfort. And every time you do that, you're not just delaying. You're reinforcing the old identity, making it stronger. You're not stuck because you don't know enough. You're stuck because comfort keeps winning over conviction. What is comfort? It's warm, familiar, easy, harmless. It doesn't pressure you, doesn't push, doesn't stretch. But you're not meant to be preserved. You're meant to expand. And only you can unleash that. And here's the harsh truth. If your actions don't conflict with your comfort zone, you're not growing. Growth is always a fight, not with others, with yourself, with the part of you that wants peace more than progress, that says, do it tomorrow. Today's tough, but right there, today, in that tough moment, the new you is born. If you don't stop, today's choice isn't just about results. It's about repeating a new identity, not someday, not later, not when it's easier, now. Because the future is made of today's nows. And every time you choose movement, you don't just move forward. You break away from old roles, old fears, old limits. And remember, every act against sabotage rewrites your DNA. A new code, a new system, because you're not waiting on mood anymore. You've become the one who decides. You think the battle is with the world outside. But that's the illusion. The real war is within. It's not about time, or money, or support. It's about your choice. Every time that voice whispers, "What's the point?" that voice is quiet, but corrosive. And every time you stay silent, it gets louder. Because silence is agreement. Sabotage doesn't need force to stop you. It just needs you to hesitate. And here's your real challenge to answer. Not with words, not with fighting, but with action. Clear, simple, as an antivirus. Because doubt isn't a stop sign, it's a test. Did you really decide? And if you did, there's only one response. I act. Not because it's easy, but because the other option is betrayal. And betrayal, that's not comfort. That's the old cage. And it doesn't fit you anymore. You've seen more, felt more. And now, the choice isn't between ease and effort. It's between growth and decay. There is no middle. In moments of collapse, don't search for rescue. Search for position. Don't ask, why is this so hard? Ask, who am I in this minute? Because in the point of weakness lies your greatest power. If you show up now, when everything screams no, you win. Because you've become your own fuel. No crutch, no hype, no rescue. Just you. Your action in the face of doubt is the purest choice you'll ever make. That's the moment your new character is born. And once you see that, doubt won't be your enemy. It becomes your door, and only your hand can open it. There's only one reason you're not where you want to be, and it's not time, not resources, not circumstances. It's unfinished actions. You started, you tried, but you didn't finish, and every one of those left a mark, not on your schedule, on you. A mark that says, I didn't follow through. And those marks, they weigh you down, because every new beginning now carries the shadow of old endings. Sabotage doesn't strike when you start. It strikes when you continue, when the high wears off, when the work gets boring, when the ease disappears. That's where most people quit, because they were chasing feeling, not result, but results. They're not always exciting. They're often tiring, messy, repetitive, and only those who stay get transformed, because finishing isn't strength, it's maturity. Maturity means you don't run when it's dull. You don't chase a new idea just because the old one lost its spark. You finish because you said you would, because you meant it. And that's rare, but it's also what builds respect, not from others, from yourself. Your power isn't in the flashy start, it's in the unbreakable motion, in not quitting when it's hard, not searching for excuses when it's inconvenient, just doing, quietly, firmly, with one loud promise inside, I finish. And that promise, it's not for anyone else, it's for you, because only you know what it means to lose it, and only you have the power to keep it. When others quit, the final word is always yours. And if you whisper I continue, even when you're drained, even with doubts, you've won, because that's when sabotage surrenders, not to the strongest, but to the one who never gave up. Breaking self-sabotage isn't about becoming someone else. It's about finally becoming yourself, fully, without distortion, without the backslides, without that inner theater where you pretend to be someone trying, because deep down there's a version of you that can't stand lies, who knows you're ready. But he's buried under fear, excuses, doubt, old habits. And you don't need to build strength, you need to dig it out. And action is the only shovel. Every time you choose to delay, you tell that powerful self, not yet. And the more you say it, the quieter he gets. But he doesn't leave, he waits. And one day, when you act despite the fatigue, despite the resistance, he rises. Not instantly, but certainly, because you sent the signal, I'm coming back. Real strength doesn't arrive with inspiration. It shows up when you're disappointed, drained, when you've stopped believing in easy, and that's when you're finally ready for real work. And in that silence, no music, no applause, your new story begins. Not flashy, but unbreakable. Self-sabotage fears only one thing, your new standard. Not your words, your line in the sand, I no longer delay. And when that's not just a phrase but a principle, everything starts to shift. Not the world, you. And with you, the world follows. Because now, you don't wait, you don't ask, you don't explain, you act. And that is the signature of the new you. You're not chasing motivation, you're not riding mood. You're not negotiating with fear. You've become the one who chooses reality, through movement, through consistency, through fire, without the noise. Your old behaviors weren't a mistake. They were survival strategies. You avoided action because once, action meant pain, criticism, failure, and your mind remembered. It learned, better not to risk. And every time you delayed again, your body sighed in relief. We're safe, but that safety, it's not life. It's pause. It's stagnation. It's an illusion that stillness protects, when really it destroys. Because while you're avoiding action, life moves on. Not in big collapses, in tiny daily laters, in microseconds of hesitation that add up to months. And suddenly, years passed, and you didn't become what you could have been, not because you lacked the tools, but because you didn't move. And now, the new choice appears, to live without betrayal. This isn't a slogan, it's a style. A style of being present. A style of not disappearing when it's hard. A style of finishing what you start. Not launching 100 things. Closing loops. Because only closure brings strength. The unfinished leaks it. Self-sabotage thrives on open loops. That's what feeds it. Every unclosed action is a crack in your system, and it sneaks back through those cracks, whispering, "You're not capable. Look how much you never finished." You can agree, or you can close. One task, one gesture, one scene, and every finished is a strike, right at fear's heart, because completion is healing. You don't need to change everything. Just finish something. Today. No perfection, no drama, no fanfare, and through that a new self starts forming. Not a superhero, a real one. The one who keeps their word, who follows through, who lives without holes in their path. And that is the highest form of will. There comes a moment when you just can't lie to yourself anymore. When every just a little more time sounds fake. When every "I'll start tomorrow" makes you sick. And then a new kind of rage is born. Not outward, inward. It doesn't destroy others. It breaks down old doors inside. It's not aggression, it's a scream of truth. And it doesn't speak in words, it speaks through action. The action you finally take, without guarantees, without motivation. You just do. That action isn't polished. It's raw. It cuts through teeth, through resistance, through "I can't." And it becomes your first real step into a different kind of life. Because until now, you chose the weaker version of you. But now, you choose the true one. And that choice, it's not random. It's the culmination of every failure. Everything you didn't finish, everything you ran from. It all became the wall. And this is the first punch through it. Self-sabotage can't survive direct collision with action. It shrivels, it gives up, because it lives in fantasy, in planning, in postponed Mondays, and action steals its stage. It puts you on it, and for the first time you're the lead, not the spectator, not the critic, the doer. Don't wait for the mood, don't hunt for the right time. Take your anger, take your exhaustion, take your disappointment, and throw them into movement. Let them push you, let them fuel you. Not for the whole journey, just for the first step, because sometimes you don't need another gentle word. You need a push, and that push is you, not someone else, not something else. You, your choice, your move, your breakthrough, and it starts right here, right now. Every person has a moment when they can decide, no more giving up. Not forever, not in theory, in a specific day, a specific hour, a specific minute. That moment, it's always close, but it slips away if you keep looking for it later, because it's not in the future. It's when you decide, "I'm done waiting, I'm stepping up, I'm rising." Self-sabotage thrives by pushing this moment away. It says, "Not now, you're not ready, just wait a little longer." But the more you wait, the further it drifts, and the further it drifts, the less you believe in yourself. You start thinking, maybe it's not for me. But that's not truth. That's a lie made from delayed choices. A decision only counts when it's followed by movement. And that movement, it doesn't have to be big, but it must be irreversible. You no longer allow yourself to go back, not because of pain, but because of dignity. You choose to finish, not because you're tired, but because you're ready. Readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. You decide that yesterday's pattern has no say in today. You decide to stop waiting for something outside to shift, because you are the shift. When you act, the point isn't to be made of steel. The point is to not betray your next step. And if right now you're hesitating, that's okay, but act anyway. Not after you're convinced, to get convinced, because belief comes to the one who moves, not to the one who waits for belief. Here's the final thing you need to understand. Action isn't just movement forward. It's an act of respect. Respect for yourself, for your time, for the potential you've carried for years and buried behind fear. Every time you act, despite it all, you're not just doing something, you're reclaiming your dignity. And dignity doesn't need applause. It's quiet, It's deep, but it's the foundation of an entirely new life. Self-sabotage doesn't fear your motivation. It knows it fades. It doesn't fear your plans. It knows you change them. But there's one thing it can't handle: your stable, relentless presence. The daily showing up, not with fireworks but with this: I'm here, and I'm doing. That rhythm, that style, that's your new identity. You don't look for reasons, you create results. You don't daydream into the future, you pull your dream into now, into your blood, into your breath, into your action. And that makes you someone new. Not because you have everything, but because you've become the person who never backs down. This moment, it's not just another day, it's a new beginning. Not dramatic, but clear. No promises, no expectations, just one principle: I finish what I start. I show up when it's hard. I don't run, I move. And when that becomes your daily code, self-sabotage has nowhere to live. Because it can't survive in action. It can't survive in truth. And most of all, it can't survive you. Once you've chosen to be fully,